The story begins in the year 1968, where Paul is taking his girlfriend Iris to the grand opening of a very tall Skyview building restaurant. Iris is thrilled by the surprise because this tower is the tallest building of its time. What's even more surprising is that the tower was completed 6 months ahead of schedule. Apart from them, hundreds of other people have gathered to enjoy the view from the top. As their elevator starts going up, Iris slowly begins to feel anxious, as if something bad is about to happen. When they reach the top, they see people dancing, singing, and enjoying the party. The grand event has attracted a huge crowd. However, Paul learns that due to the large number of guests, they won't be getting a seat. To avoid having to go back down, they pretend to be part of the invited guests and begin enjoying the party. Meanwhile, Iris stands near the edge of the building, looking down at its height. She starts feeling uneasy and runs toward the restroom. Back at the party, something dangerous begins to unfold. A champagne cork hits a chandelier, causing a sharp piece to detach and fall onto the floor. It strikes the glass flooring, which begins to crack. But since everyone is busy dancing, no one notices it. Elsewhere, Iris sees a child sitting alone near the restroom. The child's mother notices Iris and realizes she's pregnant. Though Iris already knew this, she had planned to tell Paul today. But she's also afraid, what if Paul rejects her after finding out? As Iris contemplates this, Paul surprises her by proposing to her on the top floor of the tower. When Iris finally tells him about the pregnancy, Paul is even happier, and both of them feel hopeful about starting a new life together. Just then, a child in the background keeps throwing coins off the edge of the building. A guard tells him to stop because someone could get hurt, but after the guard leaves, the child resumes throwing coins. One of those coins gets caught in the elevator's machinery. Inside, Iris and Paul are lost in their joy, ready to begin a new chapter in life. But the coin causes a critical malfunction. Screws from the building's structure begin to pop out. A chain reaction follows. A gas leak starts, and the glass dance floor suddenly shatters. Many people fall through immediately. Iris sees Paul hanging off the edge and tries to save him, but he too falls. Chaos breaks out as everyone scrambles to escape. But due to the gas leak, a fire breaks out, killing many more. The remaining survivors rush to other parts of the building. Some try to take the stairs, but the staircase collapses too. Now, the only escape route is the elevator. Iris tries to get inside, but it's already overcrowded. Moments later, the overloaded elevator crashes down, killing everyone inside. Iris panics and runs around looking for an exit, but in such a tall building, there's no safe way out. One side of the tower has already collapsed, and people keep falling from it. Eventually, Iris is the only one left alive. At that moment, she hears a faint voice. It's the same child she had seen earlier. Iris now runs to save both herself and the child. But as she tries to escape, she begins to fall. She desperately holds on with one hand, trying to save the child, but in the end, both of them fall. And in the end, everyone dies. It is then revealed that everything was actually a dream seen by a girl named Stephanie, who is now sitting in her college class. Stephanie has been seeing dreams about Iris for the past 2 months. Today, she shares this with her friend. In reality, Stephanie is Iris's granddaughter, but what bothers her is why she keeps dreaming of a terrible incident involving her grandmother that never actually happened. Feeling unsettled, she decides she must go back home and find out the reason behind these recurring dreams. The very next day, Stephanie visits her home and meets her father, Martin, because she wants to know about Iris, where she is now, since Iris has been away from their family for decades. Stephanie begins searching through her mother's belongings, hoping to find Iris's address. At that moment, her brother Charlie walks in. He doesn't seem too happy to see her because since Stephanie left for college, she hasn't been checking in on him properly. Charlie is on his way to visit their cousin's house, and Stephanie decides to go with him in hopes of getting more information about her grandmother Iris. On the way, Stephanie tells her brother about the dreams, how for the past 2 months, she's been seeing the same vision where their grandmother dies in that tower accident. But in reality, nothing like that ever happened, and Iris is still alive. So why do the dreams keep coming? To uncover this mystery, Stephanie is determined to meet Iris herself. Soon, they arrive at their aunt's house, where they meet their cousins Eric and Bobby. They also have a cousin sister named Julia. Stephanie then goes to talk to her Aunt Brenda and Uncle Howard and asks them directly for Iris's address. However, Uncle Howard doesn't want to talk about Iris. Angrily, he explains how after Paul's death, Iris began talking like a madwoman. She kept saying that the people who had survived the Sky Tower accident would all die one by one. Iris had 2 children, Howard and Stephanie's mother, Darlene. Seeing Iris's strange behavior, the police separated her from her children for their safety. Stephanie believes that her grandmother was trying to say something important that no one ever truly understood. She tells them she needs to meet Iris and learn everything from her directly. Though Howard refuses at first, he eventually gives her Iris's current address. While going through some old belongings, Stephanie also finds pictures of her grandparents, Iris and Paul. She now understands that everything began 50 years ago with that tower incident, the same one that appears in her dreams. But in this timeline, the event never actually happened. After a long drive, Stephanie finally arrives at her grandmother Iris's house, which is located deep in the forest and is highly secured. She gets out of the car and speaks through the intercom, trying to convince Iris that she is her granddaughter, the daughter of Darlene. Iris asks her to leave her phone, car keys, and any sharp object in a box outside before letting her in. Once she complies, the gate opens. Stephanie, a bit nervous, walks in and sees that Iris is now an old woman. Iris is happy to see her but keeps her distance. Stephanie also notices that Iris always seems to be scared, as if she's expecting something bad to happen. When she asks about her mother, Darlene, she also tells Iris about the dreams, how she's been repeatedly dreaming about that tower disaster in which everyone dies, even though it never happened in real life. Hearing this, Iris reveals that those events did actually happen, or at least they would have happened. On the day she went to the Sky Tower with Paul, she had already seen what was going to unfold. She saw the future when Paul was about to propose to her. Acting quickly, Iris changed everything. She took the coin away from the child, put out the fire, and warned everyone about the cracked glass floor. Because of that, she was able to save everyone's lives that day. Afterward, the Sky Tower was shut down permanently. But as time passed, Iris began to notice something strange. The people she had saved from dying in the tower eventually started dying in other unrelated incidents. It began to feel as though all those people were meant to die in that tower. But Iris had changed fate and saved them all. Now, death did not want them to continue living. Stephanie was shocked. How could such a thing be possible? Iris went on to explain that the people who were supposed to die in the tower began dying later in ways that mirrored how they would have died that day. And since she was the only one who had survived, she somehow managed to stay alive all these years. But 2 months ago, she was diagnosed with cancer, meaning her time was now running out. Interestingly, that's exactly when Stephanie began having those terrifying dreams, as if they were connected. According to Iris, the entire family must now be protected, because once she dies, death will come after her family one by one. After all, they were never meant to be born in the first place. To help Stephanie understand everything, Iris gives her the results of years of research, the very knowledge that had kept her alive this long and the reason she never left her highly secured safe house. With this knowledge, Stephanie may now be able to protect the rest of the family. But just then, a magnifying glass accidentally shifts, and sunlight reflecting through it creates high heat, igniting a rope hanging nearby. Iris quickly notices and puts it out. Still, Stephanie doesn't fully believe what her grandmother is saying. After all, the rest of the family always thought Iris was crazy for talking like this. So Stephanie decides to leave without taking the diary. Meanwhile, Iris begins to think that perhaps it's time to go outside. She always knew the possible ways she might die. Death had been chasing her for decades. And now, with cancer slowly killing her anyway, she realizes she must do something to convince Stephanie to believe her and save the family. So Iris steps outside with the diary in hand to give it to Stephanie. She warns her that everything that's about to happen will make her believe every word she said. She asks her to step back, and just then, a ceiling fan suddenly breaks and crashes straight into Iris's head, killing her instantly. It happens exactly as Iris had predicted. The next day, the entire family gathers for Iris's funeral. Stephanie tells her father and Uncle Howard everything. How Iris had told her before dying that death would now come for their entire family, one by one. She urges them to be cautious, but no one believes her. Just then, Stephanie's mother Darlene shows up, the same woman who had abandoned them when they were children. Stephanie, full of resentment, refuses to go near her. When her brother Charlie tries to convince her that they should at least talk to their mother, Stephanie refuses. She can't forgive her mother for leaving them and doesn't want to give her another chance. The following day, Howard arranges a family lunch since everyone is finally together. But Stephanie, still bitter toward her mother, decides not to go and instead returns home to study Iris's diary. From it, she begins to understand all the potential ways each of them might die, and how death never gives up on those who weren't supposed to exist in the first place. Meanwhile, at the lunch, Bobby accidentally drops a piece of broken glass into a bowl of ice after a glass shatters, which means the shard may end up in someone's drink. Stephanie then goes to meet her mother Darlene, since she has returned after so many years. Darlene shares how Iris always terrified her with visions of their death. It had affected her so deeply that she eventually left her kids, Stephanie and Charlie, with their father and walked away. Back at home, Stephanie suddenly realizes something from the diary. Something bad is about to happen to the family. She frantically tries to call them and rushes toward the house. But no one picks up as they're all still at the lunch. Meanwhile, Howard has just joined the rest of the family. Darlene notices a sharp gardening tool lying on the ground and sets it aside. But by then, the series of deadly events has already begun. Just as Howard walks toward her, the shard of glass that had fallen into the drink ends up piercing his foot. He loses balance, and the sharp tool Darlene had moved falls, triggering the lawnmower nearby. The machine starts and drives straight into Howard's face. He dies instantly. Now, from this point, Stephanie becomes completely convinced of Iris's theory that with Iris's death, her entire bloodline will start dying one by one, because technically, they were never supposed to be born. So Stephanie compiles her entire research and gathers her family to explain everything to them. Stephanie begins to explain how, after being saved by Iris from the tower, death started coming back to claim each of those people one by one. But since the death count was in the hundreds, death took years to reach each one. By that time, many had already had children. Children who would never have existed if their parents had died in the tower. So now death is coming for all of them, anyone connected to the people who were in that tower. Eventually, when it was Iris's turn to die, she hid herself in a remote cabin, and it took death many years to find her. That's why no one else had died for so long. But now, with Iris's death, death is coming after them again. This time, the pattern will be from oldest to youngest. Howard was Iris's eldest son, so after Howard's death, his 3 children will die one by one according to their age. First the eldest son Eric, then Julia, and finally the youngest, Bobby. After them, it will be Howard's younger sister Darlene's family's turn, Darlene, then Stephanie herself, and finally Charlie. That's the system of death now. However, 2 people are safe, Howard's wife Brenda and Stephanie's father, because they are not part of Iris and Paul's bloodline. Stephanie also says that in Iris's diary, she read about a man named Zabby who managed to cheat death, so they might try to find him to learn how he survived. But this time, no one believes Stephanie. They all say she's going crazy just like her grandmother did, saying that everyone leaves. That night, at the tattoo shop, Eric was working like usual. After finishing everything, he stayed back alone. He started tattooing his own arm in memory of his father Howard. Just then, Stephanie texted him, warning that he's next in line, so he should stay alert. But Eric turns off his phone. Then strange things start happening. Due to the vibration from the sound system, a bottle falls off. He quickly stands up, and in doing so, knocks a chair into the cabinet. A bottle of liquid falls, its cap open, and the liquid starts spilling. The chain from the fan hits something and unhooks a ring. The chain gets caught in Eric's nose ring, trapping him. Meanwhile, the lamp below falls and starts a fire. Eric ends up hanging by the chain, and then the shop explodes in a massive blast. The next morning, Stephanie wakes up her younger brother Charlie, who tells her Eric's phone has been off since last night. So the 2 of them rush to Eric's house. On the way, Charlie learns there was an explosion at Eric's shop last night. Both of them get more scared, but to their surprise, they find Eric alive and well on the street. Eric explains that he survived the explosion only because he happened to be wearing a leather jacket. This leaves Stephanie confused. According to the system, Eric was supposed to die. She warns Eric to stay alert. Using Iris's diary, Stephanie starts thinking ahead, how the kids playing football might kick a ball that could hit someone, how a tree nearby has a trimmer hanging from it, and a man is using a leaf blower. All of these things could cause Eric's death. Just then, Eric's younger sister Julia arrives. Stephanie notices a garbage truck parked nearby and warns Eric to stay away from it. Julia walks past the truck, and just then, the football hits her, making her lose balance and fall into the garbage truck. Exactly as Stephanie feared. But instead of Eric, it all happens to Julia. The three of them rush to the back of the truck to try and pull her out. But they can't do anything. Julia gets brutally killed inside the garbage truck. Stephanie breaks down crying, apologizing for her mistake in misjudging the system. But then Brenda reveals a shocking truth. Eric was never Howard's biological son. Back then, Brenda was having an affair with someone else. So Eric's father is someone else entirely. Brenda had hidden this truth from Howard, Eric, and everyone else. Since Eric is not part of Eris's bloodline, it was actually Julia's turn to die, and she did. Meanwhile, Eric becomes furious after learning such a big truth about his life. He storms out of the place. On the other hand, the youngest member of Howard's family, Bobby, is now the only one left alive, meaning he's the next to die. Now everyone has started to believe in Stephanie's theory, so they begin planning how to save Bobby, knowing that death will be right behind him. That's when they remember how Iris's diary had mentioned a man named Jabby who once escaped death. Charlie has already found his address. He works at a nearby hospital. Even though Bobby has a different father, Eric still considers him his brother. So he also decides to go with them to try and save Bobby. They all go to the hospital and meet Jabby. After Stephanie explains everything, Jabby reveals a shocking truth. He is none other than the same little boy Iris had saved during the tower incident with his mother. In other words, according to the original timeline, he was supposed to die right after Iris. But Iris had postponed her own death until now. He further explains that this hasn't only happened to them. Many people have gone through similar situations, and no one has ever truly escaped death. He reveals that he and Iris had built a secret house far away from the world so she could stay safe. But eventually, Iris developed cancer. And now, Jabby has cancer too. Stephanie then asks him how they can escape death. Jabby says that in his entire life, he has found only two ways to survive it. First method, when it's your turn to die, you kill someone else instead. By doing that, you absorb that person's remaining lifespan. Second method, allow the person who is supposed to die to actually reach the point of death where their breathing stops, and then, at the very last moment, have their family revive them. If this is successful, death leaves their bloodline alone and moves on to the next target. After hearing this, Eric takes Bobby outside. At first, they even consider whether Bobby should kill someone to take their life. If he kills a child, he would gain an entire lifetime. But neither of them agrees to go through with such a cruel act. So, they choose the second option. Since Bobby has had a peanut allergy since childhood, Eric makes a plan to trigger his allergy by feeding him a peanut chocolate. Once Bobby goes into anaphylactic shock, Eric will rush him to the doctor and save him just before he dies. And since they're already at a hospital, it should work. However, the vending machine they try to get the chocolate from gets stuck, and they both shake it forcefully. A spring also falls out during the struggle. Then, they go into an MRI room to avoid being seen by others. Eric tells Bobby to stay there safely and leaves to bring a wheelchair, so that there's no delay in rushing him to the doctor when he starts dying. But shortly after, the MRI machine is accidentally turned on, which starts pulling any metal objects toward it, signaling that death has begun playing its game. Later, after bringing the wheelchair, Eric takes Bobby's epinephrine injection from him. That way, Bobby can't use it to save himself once the allergy kicks in, and their plan can go exactly as intended. Now, as per the plan, Bobby eats the chocolate, which triggers his allergy, but they don't realize that the MRI machine behind them is still running. One by one, it starts pulling all metallic objects toward itself. Since Eric had metal piercings all over his body, his entire body begins to get dragged toward the MRI machine. Eventually, when the wheelchair hits the machine, Eric gets completely stuck to it and is crushed to death. Meanwhile, Bobby, who is dying from the allergy, tries to get the injection from Eric's hand and finally manages to inject himself. But by then, the magnetic field of the MRI machine has reached outside the room. A nurse sees something strange and enters the room to check what's going on. Just as she opens the door, a spring, which had accidentally come loose earlier due to Eric and Bobby, is sucked in by the magnet and shoots straight into Bobby's head, killing him instantly. Now only Darlene, Stephanie, and Charlie are alive. Since Darlene is next on death's list, She decides to stay in Iris's cabin with her children, the safest place they know. As long as Darlene remains unharmed, Stephanie and Charlie will also stay safe because death follows a system. They have no other options now. Darlene, who could never protect her kids before, is now ready to live the rest of her life locked away in that safe cabin to keep them alive. After a long drive, the three of them finally reach the cabin. But the front gate is locked, and an electric wire is sparking dangerously. So Stephanie rams the gate with her car to break in. But in the process, her seatbelt gets jammed, and she becomes stuck inside. Since it's important to get Darlene to safety first, Charlie rushes to take his mother inside. But death's process has begun again. An electric wire falls onto the cabin, triggering an explosion when it causes the gas tank to burst. Darlene and Charlie are thrown outside, injured. At the same time, the car flips over, with Stephanie still trapped by the seatbelt. Just then, a large piece of debris falls right on top of her, and Darlene dies. Meanwhile, the car is sinking into the water, and Stephanie, who was next to die, is drowning. But Charlie quickly runs back and manages to pull her out at the very last second, saving her life. Earlier, Jabi had told them, if someone dies for a moment and then comes back to life, death skips over their bloodline. That seems to be the case with Stephanie. Both siblings are now happy, thinking they've finally cheated death. Several days pass. The two siblings try to move on with their lives, forgetting the horrors of the past and spending time with their father. Today, they even pick up one of Charlie's friends for a party. There, they tell a doctor about how Charlie brought Stephanie back from the dead. But the doctor reveals a shocking truth. Stephanie never actually died. According to medical science, she was only unconscious. That means death is still after them. Just then, a woman walking nearby accidentally drops a coin. It rolls straight into a gap on the railway track. As a result, a train gets derailed and comes rushing toward Charlie and Stephanie. Despite running for their lives, both of them get crushed under the train. The truth is, no one can cheat death. And with this heartbreaking ending, the movie comes to a close. That was today's story. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.